Yes. Okay. Okay, so we're going to start our domestic violence workshop. As you know, I am a survivor of human sex trafficking as well as a survivor of domestic violence. Currently, we are partnered with an organization, the Salvation Shield of Hope, and they deal with domestic violence as well as human sex trafficking. So we've partnered with them, and I speak at a lot of their events as well. So we're going to be talking about the 5 love languages, setting boundaries, self-esteem boosting. Also, we're going to talk about, I have a list of definitions. So I want to get through the definitions first so that you'll understand exactly what I'm talking about after I give what each definition means. So first, we have the 5 love languages. According to the dictionary, it's gifts, tokens of love or affection, quality time together, physical touch, words of affirmation, and acts of service. Now, even though the dictionary gives us that as the definition of the 5 love languages, I was pondering as I did my research and my studying on why we don't receive those that I just mentioned from the people who are in our lives. A lot of people would think of domestic violence and think that that would only mean a spouse or a partner or someone you're dating. But actually, research shows that you can experience trauma or domestic violence from a parent, a child, a friend, anyone that's in your surroundings, which is why boundaries are so important. So let's get through the definitions. Physical abuse, hitting, kicking of any kind of physical force, that's physical abuse. Emotional or mental abuse is control, isolation, manipulation, or scaring you. And it also comes in the form of statements or threats. Narcissistic personality disorder, which deals with narcissistic abuse, includes negative traits such as the desire to be admired, unable to take criticism, the inability to listen, consistency, empire building, and also the lack of empathy. So so those are the definitions. I don't know how many of you are familiar with the movie Eve's Bayou, but for those who are familiar with the movie Eve's Bayou, and those who are not familiar with the movie Eve's Bayou, I want you to take a look at that movie as soon as you're able to. But I use that example because it shows in the movie how the girl, which is the daughter, there's a daughter and a father relationship, and the girl usually kisses her father and tells him that she loves him like she always did. But this particular time, when she kisses her father, the energy is different. So the reason why I wanted to give that example is because I want to talk about how love is an energy. I would like to talk about how one of the abusive, and I say one because there's been several abusive relationships that I had, not only love relationships, but just in my surroundings, because I didn't know how to put those boundaries in place. I had low self-esteem, and I just did not know how to be the strong person that I am today. Another thing I want to talk about is being perfect. You're not going to be perfect. So if you have a perfect image of yourself, you might as well throw that out the way. And one quote that I often say is, we're not perfect, but we're perfectly trying. So as long as you strive daily to be the absolute best that you can be, and you feel that you are, then that's enough. You are enough. Okay, so let's get to it. When I was in an abusive relationship, when I was about maybe 15 years old, that was the very first abusive relationship, just like human sex trafficking. I had no knowledge of an abusive relationship, other than maybe the movie Was Love got to do with it, or the movies that we seen, or the abuse that I seen and witnessed in my home from my father towards my mother. But I still didn't think it could happen to me. No one really explained the way it happens so that I could furthermore prevent it from happening to me. This guy, he was very nice. He was very loving. He was very sweet. And then one day he decided to beat the crap out of me because he said that I was looking at someone walk across the street. I didn't understand it, even though I felt like I wasn't looking at, someone walking across the street, or I felt like I didn't do anything wrong. When I should have left, I stayed. Why do we stay when we should leave? Why do we allow people to abuse us when we should make the choice to set boundaries? Anyhow, I realized after he beat the crap out of me for that, he gave me a gift. And the gifts kept getting bigger and bigger, and the abuse was getting worse and worse. And I'm not here to give that whole story, but I wanted to give you a glimpse of it so that you know that I have experienced it. For those of you, it may be someone watching who is going through that right now. I want you to know I know exactly what you're going through. The next example I want to give is an example of narcissistic abuse. Oh, I've been through that too. Just like I was talking last week, and I mentioned about how I was in the being kidnapped in human sex trafficking. The pimp would have been considered as a narcissist. Now, what they do is narcissistic people tend to want you to give them glory. You almost idolize them or worship them in a sense. They want you to constantly tell them how wonderful they are, while they constantly tell you how horrible or terrible of a person you are, until you look up and your self-esteem is this low. The other thing that narcissistic people do is something called love bombing. And that's usually in the beginning. When you first meet a narcissistic person, they'll probably love bomb you. So I want to give you a couple things to look for, just in case you've never experienced a narcissistic person or narcissistic abuse. They may invite you, let's say you first meet them. They may give you the time of your life. They may give you huge gifts. They may, I don't know, put a wedding ring on your finger even. But I want you to look at that as a red flag, because there's something wrong with the person that or something wrong with that situation. If you're just meeting a person, you've only known them a week, and already they want to move in and be a family. Already they want to put a ring on your finger. Already they're sending dozens of flowers or balloons to your job. You may think it's sweet, and I know I did. I thought it was the sweetest thing ever, until the mental and the verbal abuse starts, and sometimes even physical. It just depends on what type of narcissistic person that you're dealing with. And it's unfortunate that they really have not given a full diagnosis as far as narcissistic people goes, but they have declared the name of being a narcissistic person or a narcissistic personality disorder. And I felt that it was important to mention that today, because we're dealing with different type of abusers. So that's what's so confusing about it, because I was thinking, why is the whole abuse process of abuse so confusing to me? So now we're going to talk a little bit about love languages. And not as far as the definition that I got out of the dictionary, but I want to deal with the fact that love is an energy. Now, this part of what I'm speaking about, I got actually from my pastor wrote a book. Her name is Dr. Arnella E. Lewis, and it's called But You Say You Love Me. It talks about how we bring baggage into our relationships. Everyone has baggage. I want you to think about this. Have you ever noticed that when you first enter a relationship, you present the best version of yourself? The other person presents the best version of their self. You don't go into that relationship telling them the worst things that you've done to people, or maybe the worst things that's happened to you. We tend to hide those things because we don't want the other person not to accept us out of fear of being possibly rejected by the other person. Well, I'm not here to shame anybody or badger anybody, because believe me, we've all done it. I know I have. But what I do want to point out is that the person that's on the other end, they do this as well. So that's, if you're wondering how they turn from being this wonderful, loving, amazing person, and then one day you wake up and now everything is being exposed, the mask that they once wore, or how they tell you, I love you so much, but their actions do not follow. Here's another example that my pastor have given before. You could love a person maybe like Christ loved the church, or you could love a person with all that you have, everything inside of you. And the other person can love you like they love a hot dog or ice cream or cheesecake. Now, we compare those two loves, the examples of love that I just gave, those are a wide comparison. Am I correct? I'm loving you with everything in me, and you loving me like you love ice cream. That's a big difference. So when we get upset because people treat us, they mistreat us, so they don't give us the same love that we give out back in return, this way you'll understand clearly why this is happening. You see, we all love based on what we've been through in our lives. It depends on what you've seen in the house. So just as we have baggage, that other person has baggage. And not just in relationships. I'm just giving a relationship example, but this could be, as I said, a mother, brother, sister, anybody, a friend. But we all love differently based on those experiences. So when I say that love is an energy, the energy shifts or the energy changes based on what we have been through in our lives. So let's say that I'll give myself, I love giving myself as an example, using me. I grew up in a home, as I said, where my father abused my mother. Like, my father wasn't around really at all during my life, but there was a short little moment where I did get a chance to experience him. And when he was around, he was abusive towards my mother. So that was my glance of what I thought love was. So I noticed as I grew up, the relationships that I accepted and I allowed looked like those relationships. Was I trying to do it purposely? No. I would never try to put myself in the midst of an abusive relationship on purpose, but I went with what I thought to be love because that's what was shown to me. So there's other things that may have been shown to you. I want you to take a real good look at yourself and just think back. And I'm not trying to make anybody get emotional, but the only way to truly bring about true change is to look at ourselves in our own personal mirror. I do this daily. Even though I'm talking to you, I look at myself every day to identify the things in me that I might need to work on. So as you look in your mirror and you look at the things that you may have experienced in your childhood, then I want you to now look in the mirror and think about the relationships that are in your life right now. It may not be necessarily an extremely abusive relationship, but it may be some form of a relationship that should not be tolerated. Somebody that you need to let go, whether that's a friend, a brother, whether that's a lover. You may need to cut some people out of your life. The other thing that I wanted to mention is self-esteem. Self-esteem is extremely important. I don't know how many times I can say this, and I'm very open and honest about it when I say that for years I had low self-esteem. I could not shake the low self-esteem that I felt. And I'm learning after doing research and discovery and just all of the things that I've been through, that the low self-esteem was from a lack of, feeling loved or feeling validated, or I was in error for even thinking that I needed others to validate me. I never needed people to validate me, and neither do you. We're validated through God. We're validated through ourselves. So I definitely want to talk about that as well. I would like to read one piece out this book so that you can just, so you can familiarize yourself with the book and just to see how you feel. And you will get a chance to ask questions and give feedback once I get done speaking. This is on page 28 of But You Say You Love Me. The scary thing is that silence does not mean quiet, and hidden does not mean gone. Neither does denial eliminate. Remember, the buried life of the soul's tragedies yet live. How many times can you admit to having someone in your life that you chose to be there, but as a result of them being there, your life has been turned upside down? Think about it. Because of a doormat memory or because of an unresolved conflict and hidden agendas, your life is forever a transformation. So I hope that made sense, but I'm going to just explain it really briefly. So basically, what she's talking about here is self-examination, which I've already mentioned. She's talked about us being in denial. Like sometimes you can be in denial. And that's why I often, when I'm teaching these classes or I'm talking and speaking, I often tell others, let's look at ourselves, because I notice a lot of people point the finger at the other person, but really you can't change anyone. We can't change anyone else other than ourselves. So that's why I like to speak about self-examination, because a lot of people ask me, how did you get to the point that you are now? My answer is, well, first and foremost, God. But my other answer is, I do a lot of self-examination. I was taught to do a lot of self-examination. And I just think that that's like super, super, super important. Now let's jump back real quick. I hope that I haven't lost anyone. Let's jump back real quick and talk about the narcissistic thing just a little more, because I just want you to familiarize yourself with it, just in case you may have dealt with someone that did these things. So as I said, they do the love bombing. Then they do the isolation. So I don't know if you've ever experienced a person, just cutting you off abruptly after you've done everything, wonderfully, or you thought the relationship was going great or the friendship was amazing. And the next thing you know, they just stop talking to you for no reason at all. And you find yourself in a predicament where you're begging, you're giving, and you're not receiving that in return. So you're, why did you do this? Or you're constantly calling them. I've been there. The next thing is the devaluing stage. And that's when they put you down constantly for no reason at all. And sometimes it can be subtly, because I had dated someone who subtly would put me down. Anyone that's ever known me knows that I love makeup, not because I have to have it, but I just love makeup. It's just who I am. And, he will put me down. Oh, you would be beautiful if you did this. You would be beautiful if you did that. So that's like devaluing, and they leave little subtle negative messages in your psyche for you to go back to later. The other thing is discarding. Have you ever been in a relationship where you may have experienced some of these stages, and then the next thing you know, the person just lets you go and you don't understand why they let you go, and you're trying to figure out, like, what did I do wrong? But deep down inside, as you search yourself, you're like, I know I didn't do anything. I've been wonderful to this person, so why would they let me go? All of that's a part of narcissistic abuse. If you're going through any of these things, I want you to know that you are not crazy. I've been there. And that's why I felt like it was just so important to break those things down so that you could understand better and more clearly. Now, very quickly, I want to talk about setting boundaries. Setting boundaries is so, so, so crucial. I didn't have boundaries. For those of you who didn't know me or don't know me, I didn't have boundaries. Everyone could walk all over me. I was a doormat. And then I would go somewhere and cry, and I was looked at as being weak when I never was weak, but I had low self-esteem. And I feel like low self-esteem in combination with no boundaries is a terrible thing. So I wanted to talk about how my grandmother used to tell me, fall for something or stand for anything. This quote, actually, when she told it to me, I didn't really understand what it meant completely, but I do understand now what it means. setting boundaries definitely have to do with standing for something so that you won't fall for anything. So when people come into your life, doesn't matter who it is, you have to already have in your mind what you are willing to tolerate, what you're not willing to tolerate, what you're going to stand for, what you're not. So, I mean, if any of you have a notebook right now, like if you want to write this down, I really don't mind at all, because believe me, I literally practice everything that I'm like saying to you. I practice it myself. So let's just give an example. I don't know. It can be a boundary of any kind. I tell people all the time, one of my boundaries is God. So I experienced where a lot of people tried to separate me from God for whatever reason. They felt like that was my only strength, I'm guessing, like those where I was in those times where I was in abusive relationships, whether it was a pimp, whether it was just an abusive person. I noticed that they always tried to separate me from God. And there was times when, you know, I may have been getting a black eye and still was going to church. And even though God is not about just church, it's just that relationship. So that was number one on my list just because of that. But that doesn't have to be the boundary that you set. You know the boundary that you set, something that you stand strong for, and you're not going to let anybody just come in and push you out the way. The next thing is self-esteem boosting. So right now, real quick, I want to do a self-esteem boosting exercise with you, and you could do this where you are. We're just going to be saying some affirmations that I created. It's actually about 8. The first one is, I am beautiful inside and out. I want you to tell yourself that you're beautiful inside and out, because I want you, or I would like you to get in a habit of just that energy. Like, you set the tone, you set the bar for yourself. Like your beauty within or your beauty outside is not determined by anything anyone else is. It's determined by how you feel about yourself. The number 2 is, I am worthy of love. Constantly tell yourself that. And for some who may feel like that, it may sound a bit silly, but I promise you that there's at least one person who may not feel like that. And for that one, I am worthy of love. Number 3 is, I will not be hard on myself. This is something that even I like deal with right now, even as a founder. I will not be hard on myself. Stop trying to be a perfectionist. You are not going to do everything perfect, but you are perfectly trying. And that's not even perfectly trying to be perfect, but you just perfectly trying to be better than what you was yesterday. And if you do one thing right, if you complete one task or one goal, then you've already done enough. And kudos to you. Number 4, I am doing the best that I can. If you're doing the best that you can, and I don't care if that's just the best kind of parent you could be, if you're doing the best that you can, taking care of your, household responsibilities, that's enough. Kudos to you. That is amazing. That is awesome. Because none of us, no one on earth can ask you to do more than what you're able to do. And you shouldn't let anyone make you feel bad if you can't do more than what you're capable of doing. So congratulations on that. The next thing is, I am validated by God, and that's all that matters. This is for people who may experience criticism on Facebook, YouTube, on Instagram. Stop caring about that. And I'm not saying this from a judgmental or hurtful place, because I was one of those ones at one point, like, that would really hurt me or make me feel bad. But it wasn't until I got to a place where I could care less. It doesn't matter if I get 1 like, it doesn't matter if I get 1,000,000, because you validate yourself. And again, you validate it through God. So anybody else's opinions and thoughts, we don't care about that, because we're trying to get better within ourselves so that we can be the strong person that I know that you can be, and I know that I am. The next thing is, I would not allow others to set the course of my life. I am great and I know it. And the last one is, others' perception of me is irrelevant. I am not perfect.
It is.
I am perfectly trying. So that is what I wanted to talk about. So I want to open it up now for those of you who want to ask questions, and just I'm here for you. So I asked that because I'm now controlling the meeting, that one person at a time, whoever does it first, that's the question that I'll answer. Unmute your microphone.
Yes, Keisha, I have a question. This Cynthia.
Okay.
Could you hear me?
Hey, Miss Cynthia. Yes.
Yes. When did you first start this? Feeling exactly feeling this way? I know you may have been feeling a long, long time, but when did you decide to do something about it?
I didn't decide to do something about it until after I was trying to commit suicide. Okay. Like that's when everything got serious to me, honestly, because I was in denial. That's why I talk about being in denial. I didn't feel like it was nothing necessarily wrong with me or the way I loved or anything really, because I had people in my ear telling me that, you know, just ignore it, just ignore it. That's the worst thing you can do, is ignore something. And the other thing I want to add to that too is that I had to really take a look in the mirror myself, and this was so painful. Like, I'm not going to tell you that this is going to be an easy thing. But after constantly attracting the same type of people into my life, what I've learned from reading this book, But You Say You Love Me, is that we will continue to attract the same type of people until we change ourselves. So I was constantly attracting the same type of people, and I had to look at myself and say, what is the common denominator in this situation? Yeah, they may have did this one may have did that, but I'm the common denominator. So why am I constantly allowing this abuse when I don't need it? So once I took a real look at myself, that's what made me want to change. And then I started making those steps towards change. Okay. Is there anything else?
I have a question, if you don't mind. You look quite young. Are you in your 20s, 30s? And you look like you're a well-rounded individual. How was your childhood growing up? Or did I miss that?
Yes, it's okay. You can always go back and watch it, but I don't mind giving it to you briefly. I had a terrible childhood, as I we did a workshop last week, which was on about human sex trafficking, and it was called Freedom Speaks. And I stated that I had a terrible childhood, probably one of the worst childhoods that anybody could have. I was thrown off of a building. What else? It just was, crazy and violent, but I thank God that I got through it. And as far as my age, I am I was about to say 35. I will be 35 years old, April 26th. Is there anything? Yes.
I have one more question. Do you do speaking engagements around the city?
Yes, I do speaking engagements around the city, and I'm also even interested in doing them nationally as well, like nationwide. It can be anywhere, even if I have to do it virtually. But I would like to be known for being a human sex trafficking survivor, but also for being willing to give my mistakes out in order to help other people. It's not a whole lot of people that's willing to, basically tell on themselves in order to help someone else.
One more question. If I could get your information, would you be willing to talk to my director of the library about virtual classes?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
So basically my information, if you want to write it down, is honorablewomeninc.org.
Okay, I have that.
Okay. So just complete.
Can you put it in the chat?
Yes, I will. Let me put it in.
Yes.
Thank you.
And also your email address as well as your phone number.
Okay. I don't want to give it out on here because this is being recorded for.
Oh, right.
YouTube channel. Let's see, but you can get it.
Lakeisha
Has it.
Lakeisha, you can send it if there's somebody who wants to get it. They can get it from me or go to your website, I think, to get your information, and they can contact you through your website.
Okay, I just put my website. I posted my website.
Keisha, I think you're doing great.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
I have a
Yeah.
question.
Okay.
Excuse me, you're doing great for yourself and other men and women, because men are abused too.
Yes,
I
that's
have a
true.
question too.
Okay. Thank you,
Uh,
Miss Cynthia. I appreciate that.
my question is, what would you tell a woman, right? Okay, she's in a abusive relationship. Now she didn't told friends and family like what this person doing, but the man, he's so great at hiding it that when the woman, if she does say something to people, like the way he is good at hiding it, they feel like the woman is lying. So what would you tell her, like how would she get out of that situation? Like she's scared, like she leave,
Okay.
like she feel like he will kill her, like then like she feel like her kids will hate her because her kids, they love their father, but on the other hand, the person, he's just so good at hiding that he's an abuser, that she's scared that people will look at her funny. Like what would you say to that person?
Okay, well, the first thing I want to mention is that sounds like narcissistic abuse to me, because usually they have a tendency, well, them and as well as physical abusers, but they have a tendency of turning everyone against you. And they seem so wonderful and so great. And I actually did a video on our YouTube channel. I don't know if you've seen it, London, but I did a video where I was talking about narcissistic abuse and how they turn people on you, against you. The second thing I want to say is she needs to definitely get a safety plan. I would say a great place to call, and I've actually called them myself, is the domestic violence hotline. They are wonderful. They are amazing. And the reason why they're wonderful and amazing is because, number one, they will talk to you anonymously. So for those of you who may be afraid, like, oh, I don't want anybody to know my name, this and that, they will talk to you and almost give you like a glimpse of a counseling session, like when you call, because every time you call, you may not be ready to leave at that point, but they basically give you support so that you could build yourself up to leave. And they also help you with a safety plan as well, so that you can know how to leave. Number two is definitely do not tell the person that you're going to leave them. The reason why I say this is because telling a person that you're going to leave could end fatal. Unfortunately, I know a girl who just recently, I would say maybe a few months ago, passed away because it ended fatally because she told the guy that she was going to leave him. So definitely do not do that. Number three is that a lot of times just let her know that you can't always take everything. Like if you do plan to leave abruptly, you can't always grab like a whole bunch of stuff. So she needs to start preparing stuff, and they'll tell her that even as far as the safety plan, but she needs to start preparing those important items like without him knowing. So maybe your ID would be an important item. If you have any cash that you definitely would need, that's important. Just little small stuff. If you have a baby, maybe some baby diapers, just emergency baby diapers, because you may only be able to just grab a small bag and run out the door. It just depends on the situation.
Right.
And I hope that helps.
Oh yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome. Is there any other questions from anyone else?
In the beginning,
No, but I have something for Keisha.
Okay.
You mentioned something about the 5 love languages, and I know that we're studying Gary Worm. I can't pronounce his last name. Anyway, his book on virtual church. And you were speaking of the 5 love language as a part of abuse in a way. Is that right? Did I hear that right?
Yes, I was speaking about the 5 love languages in comparison to the abuse. So basically, what I was saying is that this is how we're supposed to be loved according to definition. And this is how we're being loved for those who may be experiencing abuse in any form. You know, it could be on the job, it could be anywhere. But I wanted to give a comparison of that. And I'm glad that you actually brought that up, because it was something else that I forgot. It's always so much information in my head. And maybe we could talk about that. I don't know what the time looks like. Miss Didi, I don't know how our time is right now.
I think we're okay. I think we're okay. I think Martha has a question though. Martha, do you want to go ahead and
Yes.
ask your question?
Hi, ladies. Hey, Miss
Hi.
Keisha. My
Yes.
question is for you, Miss Keisha.
Okay.
Out of everything that you've been through, everything that you've been through, that at any given time, did you forgive those first who had hurt you, or did you forgive yourself first? Well, not forgive yourself first, but did you forgive them first?
That's an amazing question. You got a great team, Ms. Didi. I love this question because actually, no, I forgave them first. And I did not forgive myself. It took me a long time to forgive myself because I didn't know that I needed to forgive myself. But I had so much, hurt and anger from them that I didn't notice how much shame I had within me. And after researching myself, I've learned that that shame comes from me not forgiving myself for even taking place in it, whether I wanted to do it or not. I needed to forgive myself. So that was a great question, but I forgave them first. And then later down the line, like I would say after the suicide attempts, that's when I started to forgive myself. And that's also when I learned what human sex trafficking even was, because all that time I didn't even know what human sex trafficking was. But once I learned what human sex trafficking was, it made it a little easier for me to forgive myself, because then I was like, you was a slave. Like, so all this time you've been thinking you was this terrible person. You know what I mean? So that helps me a lot. But any other questions? I hope that helped.
Martha, Lakeisha, I have a question.
Okay.
Can you talk a little bit more about the whole honeymoon period? There's this whole cycle of abuse where, you're abused and then your supposed
Yes. So
lover
you're talking
partner.
the love
Yeah.
bombing?
Yeah.
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit more about how that works and how, that just sets up the trap for a little bit long? Like it's just a continuing
It does.
cycle. And maybe you could just talk a little bit more about that. Because I think sometimes
Yes.
people think, oh, well, he's treating me so nicely, I could never leave him or her, or whoever it is. But if you could talk about that just a little bit more, that'd be great.
Sure, Ms. Didi. Okay, so as it relates to the love bombing or how they pretend to be so great, they only do this so that they can attach themselves to you in your psyche so that you will think that they won't leave you. They also do this because they have something that's called trauma bonding. So with trauma bonding, what they do is, I'll use myself as an example again. They may take, let's say, when you first meet someone, and once it gets to the point of you're telling them things about your life that you experience, and they're telling you things that they experienced, this is when you usually may mention some of your childhood, or you might mention just something that you traumatic. So that's when they will bond themselves with you and mention something traumatic that sounds really similar to what you went through. And next thing you know, you feel like, I am bonded to this person. I can never leave this person. This person has, this in common with me, and this person is my soulmate. That's how you feel. And also the other way that they connect themselves with you or leech onto you is through doing loving things. So it can be negative or it can be in a quote unquote positive way. So they may do amazing things, as I mentioned earlier, like buy you a wedding ring, and you may feel like no one else have ever did this for me. I must stay with this person because this is the best that I'll ever get. It don't get any better than this. And then you have the person in your ear, you're nothing, you'll never be nothing, you're ugly, you're fat, you're this, you're that, whether they're doing that subtly, subtly, or whether they're doing that in the most big way, it doesn't matter. They're still slowly but surely causing your self-esteem to be so low that you feel like that's the best that you can do is that person. And I'm here to tell you, if you feel like that, that is so far from the truth. It's not even funny, because half of the things that I've done, even in this last year, I didn't even think I was capable of that at all. Back then when I was like in those abusive relationships, because they had me feeling just that low. So think today, like how amazing you are, and that I know that you are, who's listening, and the things that you haven't even discovered about yourself. And so that's why I just caution you, please do not listen to what the abuser says. Don't let the trauma bonding, don't let the love bonding overtake you where you feel isolated, because they definitely isolate you and make you feel like you don't have any support. A lot of times in the beginning or early on, they isolate you from family and friends or anyone that they feel like loves you. They want to isolate you from those people. And once they get you to yourself, then they can just fill your head with all of these bad things. So that's all that you're hearing. And last week I mentioned about how you should have positive things all around you and tell yourself even positive quotes. The reason why I mentioned that is because when you're dealing with an abuser, they're just constantly, so if that's all you're hearing, what you're going to believe? You're going to believe negative things, right? Because they're constantly putting it into your psyche. And you look up and you feel like, well, I can't get out because I'm not enough, because I'm not wonderful, I'm not great, I'm a terrible mom. He's great with the kids, they love him. So what is it with me? They just play they deal with a lot of mind manipulation as well. Is there any other questions?
Yes,
Yeah.
I have one.
Okay.
Okay, now, what are some of the signs that an outsider can spot that, because they in denial or whatever it is that's going on with them? What are the signs that maybe an outsider can spot to know that this is a abusive relationship?
Okay, so is the outsider, that's the
It's a
outsider.
close family member.
Right.
So it's
Okay.
someone that kind of recognize that the abuser is trying to put that wedge between the family and them.
Okay,
but I mean, it might be recognized by them, but not by the person that is being done to.
Okay, so I would say the first sign, according to my own interpretation or my own experience, is definitely isolation. This is a huge one. They almost always isolate. I've never known an abuser to still just, I mean, you have the sneaky kind. So we'll say it may be a couple abusers that still is just all with the family, but they all almost always find a way to separate you from the person that you love the most outside of them. So if it's your mother that you love the most, if it's your father, your pastor, a cousin, that's the first person that you're gonna get separated from. So once you see that going on and you see that now all of a sudden they're not talking to you as much, now they're just always with them, you need that should raise a red flag. Because what's going on that, you know what I mean, this person don't want you around us, and you've been around us your whole life. We love you.
Right. Okay.
What the woman, I can't say that word, narcissist. Would the woman be considered a narcissist if she know that she's getting abused and she loves her abuser? Like, would she be considered a narcissist or just stupid?
No, neither one.
Not stupid.
I have, let me tell you this. First of all, I'm glad you brought that up. Stupid. I hate it when people call others stupid. And you know why? Because if there were any truth to stupidity, I probably have done a lot of stupid things. I don't think that there's a such thing as stupid. I feel like we're all learning. And if it was a such thing as stupid, it would be a person that dies without ever getting to learn. But I don't even think that exists at all. I don't like negative words. So, but what I will say is that you're constantly learning. Sometimes it takes more than one time to bump your head up against the wall before you've learned your lesson. I bumped my head up several times. It's embarrassing to tell you, how many times like it took before I could properly learn to love myself. And I'm still learning. Even in the seat that I'm sitting in now, I'm still constantly learning, like, you know what? This person said this to me. I shouldn't have allowed that. I need to go back to this person and let them know this is the way, setting boundaries. This is the way I would like for you to speak to me. I felt uncomfortable with what you said or whatever.
Mhm.
I have another question.
Okay.
So during your I don't even know what to call it. I say your life, you know, how many, because you was speaking on being drawn to the certain type of person.
Yep.
How many have you been drawn to in your life that abused you?
Well, for one thing, we had the two pimps, which was the gorilla and the Romeo pimp. Um, I wouldn't even say that I was drawn to the gorilla one. That was just like a force thing, but those are two people that abused me. And then I had two other abusive relationships that I
Okay.
was in. So one was narcissistic and the other one was physical. So that's why I like to say like I pretty much have experience on all forms.
Right. Right. Okay.
I have another
And
question too, Miss Keisha.
Okay.
With everything, that you have been through, even, getting out of it and today having your children, do you ever feel or think like, Lord, please don't let this ever happen to my baby? Like, I do not want my child to go through this. I'm asking you this question because this is how I feel about being raped as a child. It's like I live with this every day. I just ask God every day, please don't let my girls go through what I had to go through.
Absolutely. I'm glad you brought that up because I absolutely feel like that. And not only is that my prayer, like God don't let my babies go through it, but I'm helping the world and I'm going to continue to help the world, but I want to not leave my own behind. So my other two are too young for me to really talk to them about certain things. I talk to them. I was a teacher at a daycare. So through my learning, I've learned like the different levels psychologically with children. So I talk to them on a level where they can understand, don't let anyone touch you here, there, stuff like that. But with my oldest, I talk to her exactly how I'm talking to you. And it's almost like she gets like the personal Keisha experience. And the reason why, because I want to prepare her for the world. And I tell her like, there's good people out here because I don't want her to think that everyone is bad, but I want her to definitely know it's also some bad people out here as well. Because I just felt like when I went into the world, I was not prepared at all. And that's part of why a lot of these things happen to me.
Okay. Thank you.
I kind of feel like my question didn't get answered. So what do you call the woman who loves her abuser?
I forgot about that. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Okay. So the woman that you said loves her abuser, you don't call her dumb. You call her she just loves her abuser. It's nothing wrong with loving a person that manipulated you. They manipulated you. So what I'm trying to say is that she's the victim, whether she realizes it or not, she's the victim. So that's the point of me going out and speaking awareness in all these organizations that's constantly trying to make victims aware so that the only way that she can be brought to the true knowledge of the situation is by hearing some of the things that maybe she could relate to, but it's not meant to make her feel stupid at all. Is more so meant to just educate her on, hey, I'm not the only person that's going through this. Wow, he did some of those things. So do that mean he's an abuser? You know what I mean? So after she's gotten the education, it's up to her to make a different choice. Now, if she does not make a different choice, it don't make her dumb at all. As a matter of fact, my heart goes out to her. It took me years, and especially I would say that guy, the one when I was 15 years old, like it was a off and on thing, off and on, back and forth. And I kept running back to him until my family ended up getting him locked up. And that's what really ended the relationship completely. But it was no doing of man. I felt like I was in love. I thought that basically the reason why he's doing this to me is because he loves me. You all don't understand. He's not always bad. You know what I mean?
Lakeisha can also talk about the fact that, first of all, you're desperate for love because of your self-worth.
Yeah.
You have no self-worth, so you're desperate for that love. And
Yep.
second of all, the manipulation is so powerful. Manipulation is so incredibly powerful because you're not even, sometimes you're not, it's so good sometimes.
Yeah.
The abuser is so good and making you believe what you want to believe. And you know that saying, we're going to believe what we want to believe. That's what
Yeah.
happens. And so I think, London, when you're talking about being stupid, you're not, no one's stupid. It's
No
just
one's
that
stupid. Yeah.
these abusers are so good at what they do. They condition you. They use you. They manipulate you. They are just diabolical. It's not that you're stupid. They're just really good and making sure that you don't feel you could never leave them. So that's I think part of it.
And also, London, to add to that, Ms. Didi, I definitely agree with everything Ms. Didi just said. To add to that, London, it's about taking baby steps. Remember when I said, like, you're not going to be perfect, so don't beat up on yourself for not being perfect in anyone else, the way they view you or the way you may even view yourself. But it's taking baby steps. And so if you're on here watching and you're going through that and you still feel like, I love them, I'm watching this, but I still love them, I still say congratulations. You've already made step one, because a lot of people don't want to hear nothing about domestic violence, because the abuser have their head so much that it just feels like I'm okay. They don't even think it's anything wrong. So if you feel like it's something wrong with the situation, whether you love that person or not, you've already doing an amazing job. And I'm really proud of you, because just like Ms. Didi said, it's extremely hard.
I have a question, Lakeisha. This
Okay.
only directed for Lakeisha to answer. Thank you. Well, okay. My sister was in a abuse relationship, right?
Right.
She stayed in that relationship for 6 years.
Okay.
She'll come to family and friends, talk about it. We give her advice. I stopped giving her advice because she's still going to be with him. So my word is wait. So it took her to get out of, when she fell out of love with him, she left him. But as long as she was still in love with him, she stayed with him. So no, I love him. I love him. I can't leave him. Love and hate is a powerful word. Everybody got a heart. If she left him, she'd be heartbroken. But either way, you're gonna be heartbroken because he hurting you. Hate and love is a powerful word. A lot of people stay in relationship like my sister did because she loved him. But the way he loved her, she didn't love her. She didn't show it.
You see?
Yep. Yeah. Because one can fall out of love before the other. I'm sorry. One can fall out of love before the other person.
That's true.
Once you love that person, you're going to stay in that relationship. You're going to feel nobody wants you. Especially people that woman got kids. They always think anybody going to want me with these 4 kids, these 2 kids. They got left thing like you said.
Yeah.
Yeah, but when they love that person, they not going nowhere. I don't care what you tell them.
And Miss Cynthia, I want to say this before I forget real quick. The other thing too is that they, this is what I want to mention, especially for London or anybody else like who might need it. That abuser, it's possible that they could really think that they love you. But remember how I talked about the energy of love, and it's twisted based on what you've experienced. So let's say that they experience seeing their mother get beat on or whatever. And I'm not making excuses for them, because it's not, abuse is wrong. Any kind of abuse is totally wrong. But I'm just helping you to understand, you know what I mean, how all of this could be happening. So I know you guys have seen like movies, or just like you said, where it could be your sister or a friend that you've seen being abused, and it could be like they continue to stay with the person, or and it's like nothing can rip them away from the person. Or you may even see that abuser screaming, I love you, while they beating them up or whatever. Their thoughts about love could be all mixed up and all twisted, and that's just because of whatever they seen. So they might not have a clear understanding on what love is. But guess what? You're not here to save them. We can't save nobody but ourselves. So at the end of the day, I still don't recommend staying in an abusive relationship, because you shouldn't be the punching bag. And I'm saying that based on my own experience. I had to come to a place where I was like, I cannot be the punching bag. I'm not the punching bag. I'm not the, doormat, none of that stuff. And you will get tired. It's like, it depends on, everybody's own individual point of getting tired. But when you get tired, you will be trying to get out that situation.
Yeah, but like you said earlier, they are the victim, but they don't realize it. Because that always in the way. Their love always in the way. Thank you for everything.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Miss
I like
Cynthia.
what you're doing. I do.
Thank you.
Well, I got something to say. Like if anybody on here, if you is getting abused, like if your man, your woman, anybody, if they hitting on you, you can't call the police. Like when they stop, if when they get through, like get on the phone, call 911 and act like you ordering a pizza. That anything, they gonna get your location. Act like you ordering a pizza. Call
Oh, there's
911. I need a pizza. And they gonna come to you. Tell them to come quick. I need my order fast. Like that. That'll help. I'm just speaking to anybody. If you getting abused, when they get done, just do that.
Yep, I agree. I agree with London. That's a great thing. And also, London, I'm glad you brought that up because it's a noon light app. And I spoke about this before. London, I don't know if you've seen that video, but I was talking about the noon light app. Everybody look it up, especially if you in an abusive relationship or know somebody that is, you can touch it. And just from you just touching on it with your finger, the police is gonna come to wherever you are.
London.
I think I people about human sex trafficking. What was you saying?
This is a good movie I watched, Misguided Behavior. I cried at the end. All right, what you said is so true because where there's a Bruce, sometimes the Bruce in the home. His father was bruising him. When he went to school, he bullied. He bullied.
Yeah.
That's a movie to watch. It really is Misguided Behavior.
Misguided behavior. Okay, I'm gonna look at it. I'm gonna watch it tonight.
Yeah, just have some tissues with you by the end.
Well, I got something to say. It's a lot of people that don't believe. My name is Keisha too. Yeah, I just can't see.
Hey,
Let me
Keisha.
see. Okay. Hey. It's a lot of people that don't, it's not a question. It's just like it's a lot of people that don't believe that verbal abuse is worse than anything.
It is.
And
Yes,
they
it
always,
is.
oh, they just playing, they just doing this. And then
Nah.
once they do it in public and anywhere, and you think that's playing and calling you all types of bees and hoes, and you could tell when a person, I don't know, but me personally, when a person swing their arm or just reaching for something you doing like that, you got to pay attention to all of that. Like that's crazy.
And Keisha, that is so absolutely true. And the reason why I say that is because I felt like that verbal abuse hurted way worse than even the physical because it stayed with me for some years. Like,
because they always think like words don't hurt, but they hurt. They really do hurt.
And especially when they come from somebody that you call yourself really loving, you would make a mistake and actually believe what they saying because you like, I love this person and they say they love me. So if he say this, then this must be what it is. Yep.
I wanted to comment on that. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can.
Okay. So what advice would you have for someone whose abuser is someone you know? I mean, I almost feel like in your case, it's tragic what happened, but the thing is that these people were strangers, you know? That makes it so much easier when you get away to stay away. But what if the person is, you know, your husband that you were married to?
Oh, I had well, I mentioned
children in common. You have children in common.
I mentioned two different. I probably wasn't clear. Like the two guys that I mentioned that were the pimps, those were narcissistic abuse, but also physical and all of that. But I also experienced where I had two boyfriends that was extremely abusive to me. Now, as far as me experiencing it with being like married to them or having a baby with them, I haven't. But I definitely experienced it with it being a boyfriend, and I feel like it's the love of my life, and I can't, you know, tell anybody like I've experienced, you know, my family or whoever talking about me, and I feel like I didn't have anywhere to run, where the person made me isolated, where I felt like all I had was them, and they would continue to beat me down mentally and physically. So you want to know what advice would I give to them? The advice is the same, I feel like universally. You know, just because you have a child with them, or just because you're married to them. I know a lot of people might think like that's going to be so much harder, but I feel like it's going to be hard no matter how it is, because these people are mass manipulators. So a person that's single with no kids with the person, it's likely that they could love them as much as a person loves them that does have children. The only thing with the children, though, now that part may be a little harder, because as one of our, like as someone mentioned, sometimes the abuser could be so wonderful to the child, but then they're beating the crap out of you, or they're mentally, verbally abusing you. And then you have the thought, but he's such a good father. I would say it's still very important to really think about the fact that you deserve so much more than that. You deserve the uttermost form of respect, love. You are valuable and you are important. And I could tell you that all day. I could tell you you're beautiful, you're worthy. But until you start to feel some of those things yourself, you may not, so that's why I don't even try to like beat anybody over the head with like my views. I'm just a messenger. I'm here to show you what it looks like for a person to go through all of those things, but I'm still able to be like an encouragement to someone else, not because I'm perfect, but because I love myself, flaws and all. And you can learn to love yourself as well if you don't already. It's just, practice makes perfect. Just like how we wake up in the morning and we go brush our teeth or take a shower. For some people, those things are not automatic. For many of us, it may be automatic. So it's the same thing with learning how to love ourselves. That has a big part on why it's so hard to get away from this abuser. It's not just the fact that you love him, but you have to look at it, or her, because men can be abused too, but you have to look at it from the perspective of you may truly love them, or you may really think that they love you, but if you feel like you do more for them than they do for you, then you may be loving this person more than you actually love yourself. And if that's the case, then we got to do some self-evaluation, because it should never be like that. Like, this person is not more valuable than you. You deserve love. You deserve a hug. You deserve somebody to sit there with you, while you're crying, and help wipe your tears away. Why does the abuser get all of the support? Why you get nothing but abuse, slapped in the face, humiliated publicly? No. Anyway, because I could go on and on. Is there
Yes, you
anything
can.
else?
But while I'm listening to you and everyone else, I'm thinking, a lot of people, women and men, don't realize that and don't know what you tell them. That's why you spread it where you can. You can say what you want, it's up to them to take heed to it.
Right.
A lot of people will take heed to it, but if they weak at the heart and love, like I said, they're not going nowhere. They're gonna be on their time when they leave, when he leaves. I can't talk about that right now. Okay.
But that's fine. But the whole thing is, okay, another example. You know how like grandmothers give grandchildren's grandchildren advice, or if you for those who are mothers, how you give your kids some advice. They may not take your advice when you first give it to them. They may still go to that party that you told them not to go to, or do whatever it was you told them not to do. But later on, when they need that advice and they get sick and tired of whatever happening, whatever was happening, sick and tired of it happening, that's when they're going to reach in their mind, and they're going to remember what it is that you said. So I'm here not to solve the problem completely, but I'm here to leave you with a glimpse of just me being a survivor of it, and a glimpse of someone telling you, just in case nobody else ever told you, you worthy. A glimpse of something different than just what the abuser is telling you.
Mm-hmm. I love me.
Yeah.
I tell you, I love me. It took one time for a guy to put his hand on me. Yes, Tanya, I'm talking.
Cynthia, you make me love myself.
Yes, Tanya's supposed to.
I know.
If don't nobody love me, when I wake up, I love myself. What anybody say, I don't care, because I love me. Who she thinks she is. You know, I love me. I'm sorry, I do.
Who she thinks she is.
Yeah, I love me. What y'all dress up for? She ain't going nowhere but to the store. I love me. That's why.
Does
People just don't like to see you happy. Some people just don't like to see you happy. It don't
yeah,
take much to make you
that's
happy,
another
you
good
know.
point too.
Mhm.
Yeah, because a lot of people will try to make you miserable because they feel miserable.
Yep. Try to draw you into their drama. You know, hey, I tap
Mhm.
my shoulder, devil get off my shoulder, you know, because I'm fine. You know, I'm fine. I don't need your misery, but you know, friends and family, they need to vent. I let them do that. I let them do that with no interruption, especially my best friend Stephanie. I let her talk all she want when she, you know, into her girlfriend. Then her girlfriend called me, you know, with the same thing Stephanie talked about. I don't say nothing, just listen. But tell each other, you know, when you talk to each other, you know, I can't do nothing about it, just talk to each other.
Exactly. So thank you so much, Miss Cynthia. Is there anything else that you want to say or anybody else want to say before we wrap it up at 6:30? Is that the time that you usually end them, Miss Cynthia?
Man, what you
Not
got?
you. I'm saying not you end it, but I'm saying is that the time that your meetings usually end?
No, usually in an hour. Usually in
Because I
an
don't
hour.
think Miss Didi is not on here, right?
I don't know.
I
I
think
don't
she
know.
had to log off.
Right. Okay,
I don't see
so
her.
But I
you
can
said
say
be
everything. I
about
can take your pointers, you know, to other people. I'll give them your information, your
thank you.
email, whatever, you know, because you're doing a great thing. You're
Thank
doing a
you.
great thing. But I'm gonna say I never been abused, just mentally abused with words, you know, just words.
Bring me those.
One time,
Turn the light out. Turn the light off in the bathroom.
Can you mute your
No,
microphone?
y'all play with them right there, both of them. Don't
Miss
get on my bed. You've been
I think it's us.
downstairs. Don't get on
Is
my
that
bed.
us?
You can kneel right there on the floor.
Can you
Later,
mute your
if we get
microphone?
that last one to tub out. Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay. Okay, thank you. All right.
all right,
Miss
you know,
Cynthia,
one time, yeah, Tony, Cindy and Lena father put his hand on me. We was together 3 years before we moved in. The kids wasn't born then. I had 2 kids, you know, before, you know, and
right.
he worked full time and part time. When he came home that night, he told me to wake him up at 11:30 for the second time. Then I
Right.
had his food fixed, and he told me the pork chop was too greasy, and he threw the plate. And process of doing that, walking past me, he pushed me down. And we had these good, you know, wood floors. I had a knot on the back of my head. I was like super damn angry. I took my bath as usual. I was still crying, put my gown on, went in the kitchen. Everybody already who know me know the story. Turned the grease on, the same grease she complained about the pork chops. I turned that on and put some charcoal fluid into it, pop, pop, pop. Then I got the pot hold and went there and threw it on.
Wow.
And for that, you know what? I was really pissed because they took me to jail, didn't take him. They're too busy pouring that stuff on him. Shh, you can hear the sizzle. You know, he put his hand on me first. They said, well, you're going out on 51st. You know, it's a long story behind it. But the thing is, when I got out about 4 months, he the one that got me out because he couldn't sign the paper because he was all burnt up his hand and stuff. And we was together after that 8 years. I didn't find out I was pregnant with Cindy till I was in jail. They the one that told me I was pregnant. And years later, you know, Lena was born. 5 years later, she was born. We got back together. My family was scared for us to move back in because she said he gonna hurt you. I'm like, no, he not, because I knew his heart. I
Right.
knew he wasn't that type of person. He pushed me, he didn't hit me, but still, you put your hands on me. I had a bump on the side of my head. You could have just walked around me. I said, I'm not gonna let no man put their hand on me. Yes, I would go to jail for that. From what I seen when I was growing up, no. No. My mom and my father never bruised my mother. I got 6 brothers, they never bruised their girlfriend or wife. My mom always said, don't let no man put your hand on him. Leave him. She never said anything about him. She just said, leave him. But I wasn't ready to leave him. I just threw some grease on him. Honestly, I thought that was going to be it, but it wasn't. He managed to open the front door, kick the door on my next door neighbor, and she called the police and the ambulance and stuff. I didn't think I was going to jail. When they came and got me, they told me for assault and battery. I just knew I was going to get out that night. But then some detectives come in, handcuff me, you know, to the wall, telling me it's heinous to bear a felony. I couldn't believe it. Class X felony. Last year, I just got the reckless fine. I didn't know they still had some records. That was back in 1992. Who keeps records over 20 years?
I will, well, not to interrupt you, Miss Cynthia, but you brought up a real good point too about the police. I will say that when the police was called, it was times that other people called them because they had hit me getting beat up. And when they would come, I would always tell them like, no, it's okay. It's okay. And they could maybe see blood on my nose and stuff like that. And they would try to convince me and talk to me, like, you know, to tell me like, hey, it's going to keep happening. It's going to get worse and worse. And I was almost pushing them out the door. And that's just to encourage those who may feel like London was saying, like, what happens if the person just still love them? Do that make her stupid? No, that's what people say, but I don't necessarily agree with that because especially, you know, this might be your first experience going through it. It's a whole bunch of stuff that come into play on why we allow stuff like that. So I don't think that's because of that. I feel like it just depends on what you've been through, what you know, what you don't know about it. You know, you might be everybody could be at different spots with love. Like you might feel like you just can't do it. Like Miss Cynthia said, like you just ain't ready to lead this person or whatever. But I just hope that you remember something I said. And when it gets to the point you feel like I can't do this no more, remember what I said. Call that 1-800 hotline because they help and they very supportive and they'll even send you somewhere too. Like, you know, they have like domestic violence shelters and all of that stuff. So definitely get with them as well. But we help with that as well, just to let you know.
Yeah.
We do.
I wanted to say also that you hit the nail right on the head when you said, don't tell your abuser that you're going to leave him. And it doesn't matter because I didn't have physical abuse. I had financial abuse. I had psychological abuse. And I tried everything. You know, I tried to say counseling, let's go to counseling. And the minute I said, you know, I can't go on in this relationship if we don't get some help. The minute I said I was going to leave, that's when financial abuse came in, and I have, you know, children who poison my kids against me, parent alienation. You know, it's real.
And see, you're a narcissist. Yeah, I'm telling
he
you,
was
I know
2 steps ahead of me the whole time, always, even now. I don't have a relationship with my kids. I can't get them back. I can't, you know, he's just always 2 steps ahead of me. I feel like I can't move on with my life because of my kids.
Can I say something? First of all, thank you for sharing that. Like, you're extremely brave because I know what it takes to, you know, come out. And like I said, you've already done the first step by saying that you want help. Number 2, you're dealing with a narcissist. I know it too well, like everything you're saying, like I've experienced that. Number 3, let's take can't out of our dictionaries. First of all, you can do all things. Well, it's my personal belief. Everybody else may not believe in the same thing, but I believe, and I was taught that I can do all things through Christ that strengthens me. But I believe that you're a lot stronger, even if, you know, even if you don't believe like that. I feel like the principles are universal. So you're a lot stronger than you think. You know what I mean? So let's not say can't. And if you talk to Miss Dee, I can definitely, you know, whenever you want some help or whatever, like I'm definitely here for you. And that's what we do. You know, we walk along the whole way. But of course, we have to get it clear from Ms. Didi. But I definitely appreciate you coming forward because that's not easy at all, especially in the midst of everybody. But you could get your kids back. Everything you just said you can't, I want you to say it the opposite of that, whether you believe it or not. I can get my children back.
Yeah, I guess it's true. I know in my heart that I can. The thing is, I don't know how. I can't even go back over there and, you know, near him without, having like flashbacks, and I just am physically reacting to it in a negative way. I don't know how. That's the thing. I don't know how. And everybody says, oh, but he never hit you. And I don't have the support of my family. My mom says, oh, well, you should ask for forgiveness. And, uh,
That's because they usually brainwash everybody around you. So I'm just gonna say this real quick, and then I guess we could end it at about at 6:30. So it's 6:22 now. They brainwash everyone that's around you. Remember how I was talking about any support that you may have, they make them think that they're so wonderful, so you have nowhere to run. Well, I'm here to tell you, you run into the right place today, because I can not only relate to the things that you're saying, I've been through the things you're saying. I'm here to tell you that we'll hold your hand through the process. Of course, as I said again, you have to talk to Miss Dee because you're initially in her program, or maybe me and Miss Dee can somehow partner together. But there is help. But I just want to give you a couple things to do in the meanwhile until you're able to talk to Miss Dee. Like I said, even though you haven't went through physical abuse, utilize that domestic violence hotline anyway, because they're familiar with all the different types of abuse, even narcissistic. So they're there for you to, call and maybe talk to them and just get that support. Also, the other thing that you can do is write down what it will take for you to do each thing that you said that you couldn't do. Because you said you don't know where to start, you don't know what to do. So a lot of times they have your brain like all cloudy where you can't even think straight because of all the mental abuse and just the way they, do you. So I want you to write your ideas down on a piece of paper, and I want you to write. So I heard you mention that you wanted your children back. That was one of the things that you wanted. So I want you to, I don't know if you're computer savvy or not, like if you're good with the computer, but if you are, I want you to just Google, how can a person get their children back? And I want you to Google it based on your situation. So I don't know your whole situation to be able to tell you exactly, but I'm just telling you somewhere that you can start. So I don't know, it could be an example of, I can't get my children back because he has everybody thinking that I'm a bad person.
No. They're adults. They're adults now.
Oh,
And
okay.
so
turn them
yeah.
against you.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, the only thing with that is, I would say that maybe you can try to set up like some family counseling. That could be an option. And see if they'll join you. The other thing is not to let them ever see you get upset. Because you got to remember, they're the people like the narcissistic abuse or the narcissists, they're very good at manipulating. So they may really think that this person is the wonderful person, and they, he may have them thinking that you're the bad guy. So you have to be humble. And even though you and I and Miss Dee and everyone knows that that's not the case, you have to be humble with them and be as sweet as possible and see, like, if maybe you could talk to them that way. But I would definitely recommend some therapy. And the reason why is because a therapist is usually your support. They're usually on your side. You know what I mean? So they can definitely help assist you as far as just getting that courage, building that courage to like make, the